Hello everyone, welcome to another bonus content video. Sorry about the cracks, that is me cracking my knuckles, and I will not do another take. Spoiler warning real quick for book 2, Vengeance Cataclysm, and also potential spoilers for other books. I might mention something else, but just like overall general book series spoiler from here on. This is another document. I labeled it as discard, and I don't think I've covered this in a video. If I have, then I'm wasting my time. Be sure to let me know. I've definitely probably covered at least some of this in other videos. This is just like extra notes and sections and ideas I had that I discarded from book 2. So let's just kind of get right into it. So we start off first with um we have she wakes about 4 hours later with the sound of a door slapping with the sound of the door slapping open, startling her. This is, I believe, this is Tansu, and this is after, I think, after they escape Juvalt for the first time, and they end up going to Sin's chamber, and Tansu is kind of like obviously like unconscious or asleep for a while, and she wakes up with the sound of a door opening, and she sits up forcefully. I think she's sleeping on like a bench or on the floor or against a wall or something, and she whips her head around to see a mystical door wide open and Magcro standing under the archway. He looks exhausted and his eyes are empty. He looks at both Tansu and Chrism's still standing by her old cage, and he grips his shoulder, walking forward. The door closes behind him, and the door vanishes. Chrism calls out to him, moving to meet him halfway and to help him get to a bench. Tansu gets up and lets him take her spot, still groggy from her nap. He's uneasily quiet, grunting in pain. He sits and leans his back against the desk, exhaling with relief. His wounds are still very visible and bloody red. I think this is where they had to. Yeah, this is the fight with Javalt, where Magcro gets left behind because they escaped through a door that Chrism makes, and this is him getting back to them on his own. The way his lips and nose twitch and the clench of his brow. The fuck was that noise in my mouth? I just made like a weird whistle. Did you hear that? We're gonna keep that in. The way that he's twitching and the clench of his brow shows he's deeply upset by something. Tanzo can see the tremble in his hands and the struggle not to emote. Alice then stirs, sighing loudly, followed by "Oh boy," and Tanzo asks what in her head, but Alice says nothing in return. They watch in silence as he starts to fall apart. Chrism places a hand on his shoulder and assures him he's safe. He's all right. He shakes his head and teardrop slips from his eyelids. A hard sniffle and shaky breath surprises Tansu. He whispers, "No, everything is wrong." Prism asks what happened, and his lips loosen, and he looks away toward the doorway, eyes lacking life. He numbly states Ken is dead. So, yeah, instead of him basically being tortured in Javalt, using him and like plunging his mind for the information of how to find them in Sin's chamber, as she actually does in book 2, he is able to escape, but the result is the same of Ken dying. But in this way, that at this point, Javalt didn't follow him or use him to lead her to Sin's chamber to find them. Tansu asks, "Dead? How is that possible if you're here?" Magra responds, "I told him it was stupid, but he wouldn't listen. When I grabbed hold of her and told you to run, he made me use his soul as fuel to damage her, channel it into her body, and seep it into the air around us. It gave you the needed time to escape, since she cut his soul before, then my ascension, it was just too much. He couldn't take it." So this is still me. This is early stage of me trying to figure out how that plot's advancing forward and how to make it all work together. So he's over explaining so I can know later the process of it, so I can extrapolate and sprinkle the details where I need to. Tanto exclaims, "Oh my god," and covers her mouth. Chrism removes her hand and averts her eyes. Magcro, while burned away, Magcro, this is him speaking. While he burned away, all I could hear was his horrific screams. I tried to stop it, he wouldn't let me. I don't know if he could even stop himself. When he was gone, Javal kicked the shit out of me for hurting her. When she realized Chrism was gone, she put away her sword and just sort of stared at me. I could barely stand. I thought for sure she would kill me. Hell, I wanted her to, but she just left. So yeah, Javal just kind of leaves at that point. Which this was like a whole other. I think this was leading into a different. I think this was leading somewhere else. And I think I've mentioned before of them like eventually meeting up with Destro in some cityscape and like joining teams or something like that. But I don't remember where I was going with this exactly. Obviously, it didn't go this way. The room is thick with sadness. Tanzu crosses her arms and shifts back and forth to him and the floor. Tansu says, "I'm so sorry." His response is, "I might as well let Alice absorb me. You have more of a fighting chance if she was stronger than with me around." Chrism says that would be foolish. Numbers keep us strong, and besides, you and Ken both have magnificent minds, much too valuable to toss aside like that. Macro says, "Without him, I don't care to do this anymore." Alice says, "As much as I like your idea, Chrism is right. The more of us, the better off we are, but your big brain is more useful than anything else." They allow him a moment to grieve while doing so themselves. Alice is somber. She says she didn't know. She didn't know Tiffle could cry. After feeling out this loss, Tansu asks how long it would take for her to find them, for Javalt to find them. Magro tries to pull himself together, but is incredibly depressed. Says that Sin's chambers, unlike the rift and various dimensional slivers, this is hidden in the folds of reality. She can try, but it's well hidden. Um, Kristen said, that being said, she will undoubtedly find us, and we have to be prepared. Getting Alice her body and Tansu home safely are our priority. Hearing her say that instills confidence in Tansu and Alice. Magro exhales and says, "If everyone's ready, then let's get to it." Tansu says, "Wait, he needs to rest. He looks awful." Magro smirks, saying he appreciates that, the next step, but getting the next step is more important. Besides, they've wasted enough time waiting for him. So I don't know at what point now these notes pick up. Um, from this part, this isn't, I don't think, immediately after the other, but this is inside the ditch, and I think this might be Alice or Tansu. I don't. Okay, so this is inside the ditch where Tansu is looking for Kim's chamber. I think the second time when she goes back inside. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, so this is her. So initially, Tansu didn't uh immediate. I think Tansu failed getting Kim out the first time, like she does canonically. Except I don't think they wait as long to get her because we do actually have Kim present in the first original draft. Or one of the original drafts, we do actually have Kim present for the Juvalt final fight. This is Tansu going back inside the ditch. She knows how things feel different than before. Before it felt alive, like the walls were squirming and solid. Now she could see the walls and doorways, but they all felt like illusions, somewhat transparent with black mat barriers behind them. Every step she takes produced no noise, and her breath felt stopped by some invisible sheet wrapped tightly around her. Looking down at her hand and arm, she can see her body has some type of aura around it, almost glowing but not quite radiant, like her skin and clothes were a cutout layer of a brighter contrast on top of this blackened realm. As she walks, the ground starts to soak with water. Noticing when her feet grew cold and noticed when her feet grow cold and the splashing of each step soaks her ankles. She wanders, pressing on various doors, uh, led astray by false intuition. The longer she takes, the more the water begins to rise. As it reaches her shins, she starts to panic and move faster, kicking up the thick pond water and frantically pushing on doors. Finally, one opens, and from the mysterious closet spawns black shadow tentacles. Ones she recognizes as Sins. I apologize. There's a lot of S's in here, and I'm struggling with the S's today. They shoot out of the room and pin her to the opposite wall. She shrieks, but the noise doesn't travel very far. Lifted up off the ground, she struggles as the limbs coil around her. Suddenly, her body emits a purple glow that causes the tentacles to break away and retract back into the room. She falls into the water, which is now knee-high, and gets to her feet. Looking at her arm, she sees the white skin fade back to her own. Says, "Thank you, Alice," and then runs down the hall. So essentially, since Tansu and Alice are still in the same body, as Tansu is going into the delve to rescue Kim, Alice had some intuition of Tansu being in danger, so she passed a sliver of her energy to basically protect Tansu and to rebound whatever was interfering with her. That was essentially the idea of that. She finds the door by means of some internal guidance. She's hesitant at first, but slowly reaches out and their hands touch, igniting the sigil, and Kim's body starts to turn to glitter. So she finds her. This is after whatever conversation they might have. If there even was one, she might have. No, I don't think they did have one. I think she just kind of finds Kim in a dormant state, and then she touches Kim somewhere like her head, her hand, her shoulder. She says their hands touch. So yeah, I guess she touches her hand, and then there's a sigil. A sigil that was planted on Tansu's hand that would have been the transference sigil or whatever have you. This is me still figuring out again how I was going to go about doing it. And then Kim breaks down into a fine dust and siphons into the palm of Tansu's hand. After they get Kim out and the transfer for Alice is complete, Tansu and Kim are sitting within her mind at the edge of her bed at home, talking. Tansu tries to explain what happened after she died, and Kim talks about what happened after she left and why Kim had to send her away. And Tansu says, "Come on, there's someone else who's waiting to see you." So, yeah, once they do the transfer and Alice is being pulled out of Tansu and being put into Kim's corpse, Tansu and Kim are inside of her mind on the edge of her bed, like a little constructed place, and are just talking about everything. So we get a lot of that end of book conversation in the later third of the book. When they reunite and Tansu opens her eyes in the real world, she smiles, sitting up to see Alice in her own body sitting up as well. She looks like original Alice, but without the stitches, though the body has scars on it. Alice and Kim share a telepathic conversation. Magro pulls him out of the ditch with joy in his heart, still weak from the fight, only to spawn in Sin's chamber to see Chrism in a struggle with Juvalt. So here's where it's really different. So, yeah, Alice, Tansu look at each other in their own bodies. Kim's inside. Kim and Alice have a short conversation. And Magro's just like, hey, this is awesome. We're accomplishing things. And then as they're doing their thing, they step out of the room, or they get pulled out of the room because they leave the ditch, and they're back in the chamber, and they see that Chrism is currently hand to hand with Juvalt. So then Chrism gets kind of thwacked to the side, and Juvalt addresses them, saying, "So this is where you were hiding." Then she blitzes Macro, only to be stopped by a fully powered Alice. She pushes Juvalt back, and Chrism joins the three, shoulders aligned. Macro asks, "What the hell? How did she find us?" And Chrism says, "It was only a matter of time." Chrism, and this is where I definitely detracted, because it's just like, how did she find us? Well, we don't really know, so I like the idea better of her like pulling the information from Magcro and having that how it unfolded. How it unfolded in the book just made more sense and kind of made a more direct through line. Kristen tells the two to distract her, so Alice and Magcro rush, but Javalta is just giddy and amused by their team effort. When Chrism is ready, she slaps a spell on the ground, which ejects them out of this dimension. They are taken to the orphanage where Ken was raised and are standing in the forest with the building in the background. Magcro asks while breaking away from the fight, why did she bring them here? And she says they needed breathing room, and it was the first place she thought of. Javoth expresses annoyance and says no more dimension hopping, and she casts a spell that creates a dome around them, locking them here. Chrism scoffs in frustration. She was hoping to send Kim and Tansu away. Um, and the reason why I didn't go through with something like this is because, one, going back to the orphanage location was just like, we've already been here in this book, and we've already seen this location. And we do see this location more in Devil to the Dam, but it's like, I wanted book two to be more dynamic with the scenery, because in book one we have like Kim's house, we have whatever road she's walking on, we have the school, we have Tansu's house, and then we have like that gravel dump area where the last scenes take place, and the grocery store for a brief time, and then whatever car she happens to be in. And that's really it. It's very limited, and it's intentional that way. It's supposed to be limited because it's supposed to basically like describe her life. It's just like this little tiny box that she lives in. And I wanted book two to break away from that a little bit more. I wanted to have, we have Tansu's house. We have, obviously, in the car, we go back to Kim's house. We have different dimensional areas. We have the orphanage. We have underground at the orphanage. We have Sin's chamber. We have like the rift portal doorways. We have the ditch. We have the inside of the Kim's soul and stuff in the ditch. And so we have a whole lot more places we jump to. So I just wanted to break away from that. Hey, we're back to this place. How do we keep them from jumping around? We got to do something. I guess Javalt makes a little dome of no, you can't go anywhere magic. So now instead, yeah, I liked how I liked what I did instead in book two, which is Prism's outrage of hurting Magcro the way she did, shattering Sin's dimension and kind of like dumping them out in some random location. So I like that better. Javalt attacks Chrism, Magro ascends, and he and Alice fight Javalt, but Alice can't even cut her with her claws, swiping only to have them stop against her skin. Eventually, Alice ascends as well, and the three fight while Tansu watches, and Kim gets pissed since she can't do anything to help and still a bit lost about what's going on. Yeah, so Kim's just like, what the fuck is even happening? Who is that? What is that? Alice is in her own body, and she didn't get much of a rundown before this happened, and she's just like, I can't do anything. I'm stuck in my body because she's used to that fight with Alice. So Alice and Magro get beaten down, and Chrism is the only one left standing. Javalt, growing tired and having taken damage from their ascended forms, acknowledges Tansu as the one they're protecting, so she throws a sword at her, which ends up piercing her gut and pinning her to a tree. Ooh, I so immediately is like part of this book is like I wanted the stakes to feel raised, because people need to be in danger. You don't know who might die and who might live and whatever have you. And as twisted as it is, I wanted some of the characters who did survive to not get away scot free. I wanted them to leave with some injuries and leave with just scars and stuff like that. I don't know if I mentioned it here later, but there was a point where instead I think I was going to have Tons. I think I mentioned this before. Tansu was going to lose a finger because as she gets like pushed back against the wall or something, then a knife or a blade or some sort, or Javal just like swipes or whatever, stabs her hand against the wall and stabs into, say, I think her ring finger or something like that, and just cuts it clean off. Um, let's see. So Chrism screams no, and Tansu's torso buckles forward, blood draining down her legs. Chrism enrages, screaming that this is not how it will end. Her wings shoot out, and her body's covered with razor feathers. She's able to hold her own against Javalt, but is stricken down, her body at its limits with volatile power swirling inside her. Javalt recalls her sword out of Tansu's gut, which drops her to the forest floor. She holds it to Chrism's head, who is lying there on her side, facing Alice 20 feet away. Alice is struggling to stand and has her eyes locked to Chrism. Obviously, this fight would go on a lot longer than this. This is just me laying out the scene of how I kind of want it to go. Javal gives a speech that they will reclaim her power. Everyone here will die, and the world will undergo a new cataclysm. The perfect balance will be restored. And as she says all this, Tansu's body moves without her will, and she looks down at the wound. One eye green, the other blue, and the wound starts to heal. Oh, plot twist. Chrism looks to Alice and nods. Alice understands, and when Chrism's eye flashes yellow, Alice stabs her nails into the ground, which emerge right through Chrism's skull, killing her. So that remains generally the same. Tansu gets to her feet, acknowledging that Kim healed her somehow. So Kim and her whatever have you. This is where we learn that Kim still has some power left in her, from her the original deal, and she like takes over Tansu very briefly and pushes magic through her just through sheer instinct and heals the wound. As soon as she entered the ditch, the other fragments of her lost soul joined her, and this is my explanation for that. The ones that had already been corrupted in there, meaning Kim is now more Tuffle than she ever was before. And she witnesses the light fade from Chrism's eye. All goes silent. Javal glares at Alice with a disturbed face as she retracts her claws and gets on her feet, eyes closed. Javal puffs her chest and watches Alice rise. The wounds on her body heal near instantly, and some cosmetic changes start to occur. Exhaling slowly, her eyes open to reveal black eyeballs, white irises with an outer ring of purple. In the center of her chest, the anima pushes out of the skin with black rooted lines crawling up her neck and connecting to her eyes. Now, that stemmed from this drawing that I did, which is just a little sketch I did of Alice. And I'm like, I'm gonna do something different, and then I just doodled it kind of like that. I was just using some random template I found online, so this was not a very good one, not a very good drawing. But I was like, oh, what if her anima was pushing out of her chest, like trying to escape her body, what was contained, and then what else am I gonna do? Oh, it's kind of like the stitches on her lips or blood. So it was just based on this, and I was one of the first concept ideas of what I would have for Alice being whole in herself and with deific power, which obviously this design did not get used. Default claims it's impossible. Divine power would never accept a murderous fiend like you. Yada yada, we've been here. Macro looks to Default and starts a weakly laugh. He says she's wrong. Alice's soul is clean. On cue, her wings are up from her back and are gleaming white. Electricity shoots out from her skin with an explosion of raw power. Javalt doesn't take this seriously and she fights, but Alice is able to beat her down with ease, bringing her to her knees in less than a minute. That's when the rest of the council shows up. Yeah, so when they manage to defeat Javalt after Chrism's dead and Alice is basically God, the other two council members show up, which surprises Javalt. They should not be able to share the same space without disrupting the planet, but she sees they have certain amulets around their necks, which suppresses their power. Alice notes that because they are suppressed right now, she could kill them easily. They want to take Chrism's power back um, so they can reset the energies in the world as the one did back then. Alice refuses, saying wiping the slate clean will negate everything I've fought for. These humans are weak, simplistic fools, but I don't believe they deserve total annihilation. To which they respond, it is not annihilation, it's rebirth. This is where, yeah, so we're basically getting the motivation of Juvalt here at the end. Whereas in this kind of draft of it, I had not given really much of a reason why Javalt was fighting them in the first place, and I did manage to do that later on in the published version of sprinkling out some details and some motivation throughout. So essentially, yeah, they're wanting to reclaim the power so they can d- remake, so they can do like a spell to reforge the world and basically kill everyone to rebirth everyone in fresh new energy. The world has gone wrong in so many ways that the only chance at balance is to start anew. Alice laughs. Now that she has his power, she knows of sins in Chrism's past, which at this point, no, she doesn't. She does like that information at the end of book two and where we are currently and everything published currently, that all that information of their past is in there, but it's not immediately accessible to Alice. So this would not have been part of it. You don't get it at all. Maybe you think Sin abandoned your cause because that tiny particle of evil corrupted him. No, the fact that that particle exists means there can never be a true balance. Evil won, it will always win. It's fate. The world is chaos, and your perfect balance is a lie. Alice just really giving them the what for. So Alice plans on going on to be the defender, unbound by their archaic laws to keep the world turning, working along both sides for as close to harmony as they can get. Because now the seal the council originally set in place to lock their powers upon unauthorized killing does not exist in her. It was destroyed by the imbalance in Chrism. So um, the original the original limitation contract seal that would that they all have, all the council members have, where if they basically break their own rules or go against a fully signed contract, then their power will be the power the spell will ignite and lock them basically inside themselves and send a beacon to the siblings to go recover them because they have committed a transgression, they have committed heresy. So, but that seal was broken and destroyed by the chaos that was within Chrism because of all the shit going on in her. So, without that, Alice can kill and do what she needs to with this power, and she's going to work with Underworld, with the Council, and do everything she can to basically mediate and become the world's defender from both sides. Locked in like the heaven against hell kind of thing, and she's in the middle, just like, you stay over there, you go stand in the corner, and you shut the fuck up, or else you're not getting dessert, is what she's basically planning on doing. They ask her why a filth artificial demon would do this, and she explains that she was born for blood, but there's something more to it all, and Kim made her this way. Very simple answer. After the final fight, when Ken helps Tansu return home, she goes inside. So yes, after all of that stuff, this I don't know why I wrote Ken. I think it's supposed to be macro. Helps Tansu return home. Tansu goes inside her house, exhausted, to find her mom asleep on the couch with the TV playing. She reunites with her mom right there and apologizes, said she had to get away and figure some things out. She sleeps and wakes up. Kim greets her, she calls Joey, and he rushes over. After Alice steps away and joins the council to discuss what to do, she returns a while later after Tansu returns home. Alice visits Tansu and wants to speak with Kim. She shows up in a cloak and a half mask, like a lower face mask, hair in a ponytail, and pulled back with her fringe pulled to the side. She has like a whole new look to her. Kim notes all the changes. Kim says she doesn't understand how she's able to use the divine power because she knows that Kel wasn't evil in her eyes, but we do. This was retconned for in book one, where Alice does explain that Kel had some weird sexual stuff going on with his students, and Alice explains it now, but after after I wrote this, I went back to book one and added this detail. Had a feeling about him, something on his breath that irked me in a way I couldn't put to words. Taking his essence and found the truth buried. He loved his children a bit too much. Blah blah blah. She tells Kim and Tantu her thanks and what this all has meant to her. Yeah, this is just such a random weird place to give that detail, and this was in itself a retcon. So I had to retcon the retcon and go back and make it canon, so I wouldn't have to retcon it. Um, she tells Kim and Tanzu her thanks and what this all has meant to her. They ask what she'll do. She says there's a lot to control and she will return when it's quieter. All right. So these are just some other final notes I have. So this is the scene in the ditch the first time finding Kim's door. And this is me describing that scene. A corridor lay stretched before me. My thinly shrouded body became solid, bare feet interacting as normal, but sending a visible reverberating shiver through the walls and floor. They shifted somehow, alerted to my presence. Inhaling sharply, I relished in an unrestricted lungful of air. Suspicious, both hands raised to confirm I was real. Observing my surroundings, I could see this hall was narrow and made up of a fleshy red woven fiber. tightly crossed and stitched like a potato sack. Deep blue veins running up and down the walls, and breathing in a way that leaked streams of thin blood with every swell. A dim light from behind the walls gave depth to the room and allowed me to partially see. Dude, I like this. Did I ever use this? That's cool. So imagine like the walls made of fleshy potato sack kind of material, and then behind that is a very dim, glowing light, kind of like the way I imagine it is like when you shine a flashlight through your finger and you can see the glow through the other side. What is that called? There's a word for it for like the glow that passes through your ear kind of thing. But like the walls have that, and it's like giving just enough light for her to see the depth of the room. I like that. That's cool. A perceptible ambience was lacking, but there wasn't an absence of noise. It felt almost intentionally silent, ignored and hunted at the same time, unnervingly placid. Trickles of blood seemed to drool in reverse, slithering along the floor and crawling up the wall to an open laceration, only to be drunk with a hearty yet muted gurgle. It was only now that I noticed the ceiling was merely 2 inches above my head, making me question how I was floating moments ago, if I ever was. Refusing to speak, if I could, I turned behind to see no wall or corridor. Instead, I discovered a thick living mist of inky black. It whirled like a twister and spat glitter particles of shimmering coal in all directions, contained behind a thin sheet of reflective glass, in which my own reflection gave solidity to my worry. However, through the opaque mirror of my shocked face, shrank away in fear of the thing on the other side. The glass between us was clearly the barrier that Ken constructed before being cast out. Oh, yeah, so at this point, during that delve, Ken was in there with her, I think, and he was like helping. He was showing her that, like, hey, these are the barriers I set up. You need to go down this way. This is for you to do, but I'll be here to pull you out, kind of thing. And then as he was in there, he got thrown out by the dirge of atrocity that lives within. Is it called the dirge of atrocity? I think it is. I don't remember. Irradiated as a threatening warmth that sent shivers across my skin. You can tell I haven't read in a long time out loud because my mouth is not doing good. His face painted my mind, and a thankful nod was given because the whatever's behind the glass is behind the glass. Now I idled in contemplation. My goal did not lie beyond this pain. No, it lies ahead. I turned back and took a step, the pressure of limited time screaming at my brain. However, with that single step, a tremor rippled through the floor and the walls shuddered once again. An irate cry came before a billowing moan that abruptly filled my ears, increasing to unbearable levels before fading as a cynical cackling. Stunned, I froze in place, sensing the discourse and mania only feet behind me. Stifling my lungs, I turned again to the glass and saw calloused hands sprouting from that very mist, pressed flat against the pane. 100 or more decayed and mangled fingers curled and swatted, deafening silence. Looking away, terrified, I did my best to ignore the cloud and hands, choosing to move forward with one focus at front. Carefully, I took each step, placing my heel first and rolling my foot softly. Undetected, I created distance from the black and arrived at the far end of the hall. I wasn't exactly sure how far I had gone and refused to look back in fear of seeing no distance at all, but I had to stop. My ankles were sore from walking, and my guess was a mile or two had been conquered. Whatever the distance, I finally came across something apart from encroaching gloom. 5 feet in front of me was another pane of glass that impeded my progress, this one without hands or living darkness, yet no more comforting. Beyond the glass, the hallway continued. Along both walls was the ominous display of many, many open doors, all emanating an aura of tortured death and vacancy. My ears rang with the quiet, and whatever physical feelings I retained here tingled and curdled. I felt so wrong, a nightmare of 1,000 voices all telling me their stories, tripping over one another without a sound at all. Glaring down the hall, that's a lot of all sounds, I felt the water again. Its weighted pressure on my skin, bubbling with every breath. It did not exist. Not this time. Blinking heavily, my head rotated to the right. There was only one door on this side of the glass. It rested inches away, shut tight. I knew right away this was my purpose here. There was a particular serenity as it traced over the knots and splinters, a fresh urgency that tugged at me. And that is the discard document. Stuff I didn't use and reworked. Stuff I didn't use, stuff that I reworked too much to where I just removed it and rewrote it kind of thing. concepts and ideas that weren't fully fleshed out or just got changed too much to where I removed it, like I said. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, leave a like, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.